All right, so we're in the final push. This is our final assignment that we have going on here. And what we're going to do is, this is actually like a bigger part assignment. If you remember before, we have, oops, come on, right over there. There we go. So we have, this is my, prep images that I have. We have our thumbnails, and then we're going to have 3 different stages of this actual building stage. And the purpose of this is that at each stage I can look at it, see where you're at, make sure you're on the right track, and then just keep driving. So we're doing stage 1 today. I'm just going to slide this over here. I'm going to open up my images. And I have my thumbnail idea. Now with yours, I'm going to look at your thumbnails and I'm going to approve which thumbnail that you'll be doing. Okay? So that's going to be the, when I tell you which one to do, that's the one you're going to do. That way you're, set up on the right track. So what we're going to do is, I made a new document inside Photoshop. I made it 3840 by 2160, and then the resolution you can leave at 300, and then the RGB, white background, all that stuff. This is the same stuff we've always dealt with. Okay, now the 3840 by 2160, I get this number from, if you've ever watched a movie before, there's like the 1920. That's horrible. I'm writing with a mouse. By 1080. Okay. So 1920 by 1080. This is like a typical movie format. 1080p is what, you've probably heard it before. So it's just double. Okay. And the idea with that is that if this was going to be something in a movie, that we could definitely use this for a movie. All right. So what we want to do is do what's called a slap comp first. Okay. So I'm going to leave the white background here, but everything I drop in is basically just going to be an idea of where I want things to be. So I'm looking at my my thumbnail, and I'm going to start dropping some of my images in. Okay, so this is my background that I wanted to use. So I'm going to hold down Shift, that way it constrains it. And I'm going to hold down Alt also, so it goes, fills the canvas. Pulls from the center. And I'm just going to adjust how I want my perspective for this, right? So we have to deal with these images that we have. We can't change the perspective. I can't shoot this room from a different corner because I don't have that information. So with something like this, I'm going to try to go more like that. That way I can fit more stuff into this bottom area of my room. And what we're really going to be doing is just using all those resources we've already learned in past assignments to pull this together. So I'm not even using my tablet for this one right now. I'm just kind of dropping things in and then cutting them out kind of crudely and then adjusting it from there. So let's name this over here. So I'm going to call this background base. It's all about the base. All right, I'm going to drop in some paperwork. Okay, so I'm going to call this papers. And what I want to do with this is I want to cut it out, obviously, so it's not in this wood here. So I'm just going to use just a really crude way to do that, just using this magic wand tool. Okay. Now in this case, I'm probably not going to find too many browns in there. Maybe I'll use the quick select. And this might get me, exactly-ish what I need, or good enough-ish, right? The idea with this is that I don't want to spend too much time cutting it out. The idea is, at this stage, that I just want to see what it's going to look like. I just want to see what we've taken our thumbnail, and we're basically enlarging it so that we can see exactly what the larger thumbnail version of this would look like. Okay, and if I cut off a little bit of the paper, no one's going to cry about it. All right. Now, if it looks funky in the end product, that's where the issue is going to be. Right now, like I said, it's just a matter of what does this look like, okay? Now, I never want to delete something. Now, the way I dropped it in, it became a smart object, so I can't delete anything because it'll give me an error, which is fine. I am going to go to Select Invert, right? Control-Shift-I, and then I'm going to put a layer mask on this. There we go. Now, if I need to, I can click on this, just grab a quick brush, make sure I'm painting in black, and just clean up some of that, the edge line there I just didn't care for. Okay, there's also a tiny one right here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's there. All right, so there's my papers. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to hide one of them. Okay, I'm gonna take my paper's copy. I'm just gonna hit, you can do Control T, which is totally acceptable. That way I can hold Control and drag this and kind of lay it out on the floor of where I want these papers to look like they're at. Okay, and I think I'm actually gonna pull it off screen a little bit. Pull this down a little bit more. Okay, and I'm holding the Control key the entire time. That way it helps me kind of line things up. And then I'll hit Enter. Okay. Now, this is by no way in any stretch of the imagination looks like it's actually on the floor. It's just, like I said, a slap comp, a quick rough idea of what this room is going to look like. Okay. So here I have another image I'm going to drag in. This is my waste paper basket. I'm going to go to my wand tool. And you'll see in here, it doesn't do a good job because white and white, not really ideal. So I could try the magic wand, click it. That did a pretty good job. I'll invert, Control-Shift-I. And then I'll click my layer mask. There we go. And then I can hit Control-T and shrink it down. Now, I don't need to duplicate this one because it's a smart object. All this stuff is being written into it. So I'm cool to kind of like just place this wherever I need to. And if I need to scale it up later, I can scale it up later. Okay, and you'll see I'm not even adjusting colors. I'm literally just kind of laying things in where they need to be, just so I can see, should it be over here, should it be here, should it be back there, what size, you know. So let's say this is going to go right about there for now. You eventually want to have at least 10 different images inside of this final image that you've put together. Okay, so here's our chalkboard, and again, we go through one of our selection processes that we've learned to just help cut it out. And I could use the pen tool on this, and because it's rectangle, it would probably be like much easier than trying to do this. But I just want you to see that, you know, there are ways that we can do this without too much trouble. Now right there it did that, so I'm just going to hit deselect. I'm going to switch to my pen tool, make sure I'm on path, and then it should just be some clicking. There might be some perspective in this, but we'll see. And boom. Okay. And I can go to my paths. I think I hid my paths layer before. Yep. Oh, it's hidden. See, it's hiding under there. Where are you at? There you are. I'm just going to drop it up here with layers and channels. If I can make this thing really big. So I'm going to go to my path. I'm going to double click. Call this chalkboard. And then I can just control click it. Go to my layers and then make this. Oops. Not layers. Go to my mask here and make that a layer mask. Okay. Now with this, I don't want the chalkboard to be like hanging out right here. When did it? Just delete that. Yeah. I don't want to hang it out right here. I want to put this on a wall, like some sort of perspective. Now, if it goes on this back wall, there's not going to be any real perspective in here because it's just basically being shrunk down and placed here. But if I'm going to put it on one of these walls, I do want to make sure that I copy it before I do that. Just a little trickier to get things back to normal when you distort it like that. Oops, let me name it first. Chalkboard. There we go. And I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to hide my copy. And then I can just hit Control-T on this. And, you know, shrink it down to get a rough estimate of size. This is a doorway. There's no way it'd be that big, right? It would be like that big. And I could actually place these, you know, if this is, in my case, it's more of like a lab. So I could place a couple of these in the scene. Pull it down a little bit. And you can't really see what's back there. You can just see that it's something. Something written on it. So I don't even really need to worry about the type right now. Eventually, you know, see I'll zoom in. And this is 100% right there. And you can read that each one says the same thing. So that would look funky if they all said the same thing. So I definitely want to change what they each say. Okay. So there's, how many images do I have here? 1, 2, 3, and then my background is 4. All right. Let's grab my bookcase. There we go. It's my bookcase. You'll see this one is at, you know, some sort of perspective. So I definitely need to change that. Let me put you up here so you're all by yourself. I'll just hit enter first. Put that up there. Cool. Let's cut them out. So I'm going to use my pen tool again. These items that are pretty much just clickies are super easy to do. You know, don't be intimidated by the pen tool either, because it will be your best friend at some point. And I'm just skipping this for the moment, just because, again, this is a slap comp. I don't want to do too much work on an item if I decide later not to use it. Okay, I may drop this into my scene and realize, nope, I don't like the way that looks. I really need to get rid of it. Again, wrong spot. I don't know why I keep doing that. Layers, and then layer mask. There we go. And you'll see that there's still wood here. Definitely don't need that. There's definitely a reflection. I need to get rid of that. So let's drop this name, bookcase. Let's duplicate it. I'm going to hide one of the copies. Then I'll hit Control T. I'm going to shrink this down. Now let's say the bookcase is going to be over here on this wall, right? Looking at perspective of where this is at, you can kind of estimate how big this is going to be, right? So I'm going to kind of place it here next to the window. Actually, I think I'm going to split this into two. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this. And I'm just going to go with my marquee tool. I marquee it right there. There we go. And on one of these copies, I'm just going to fill it with black. There we go. And you can see this filled with black. And on the other copy, I'm going to invert and then fill that with black. Okay. So if I look at each of these, you'll see that this is one, this is the other. Okay. Now again, I can't leave it like this. That doesn't make sense why there's no border here. But what I can do later is I could borrow this side and just paint it in there. But like I said, for now, it's just placement. It's just roughing it in. So I'm just going to drop this in here. I'm going to shrink it down. We'll stick this right about here. And I want to make sure that, you know, it looks like it actually could be in the scene. I may have to hit Control and just modify some of my perspective a bit. All right, that looks pretty okay. And then let's do the same thing here. Control T. Oops, make sure you drag it from the corner. Make sure we're holding Shift so we don't distort it. I can check my sizes, but again, I have to account for perspective. So then again, I may have to hold Control and just adjust the perspective of this. Okay, you can definitely use the floor as a guide too, because the floor is already in perspective. There we go. All right, so you can look at this and say, okay, well, this one's like right above the window, this one's like right below the window. So maybe I just need to shrink. Oops. Shrink this one down a little bit more. And then make sure it's kind of at the same level angle as the other one, okay? And one thing we can do too, let me just kind of zoom out a touch and then make a new layer. Let me go to my pen tool. And I'm basically just going to click a point here. And I'm going to click a point like way over here. Okay. And then I'm just going to go to the arrow tool, which is A. And then just move that point until it lines up with that wall. All right. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to hit P to get to the pen tool. Let me hide my two bookcases. I'll click a point here. Oops. Click off. Click a point here, and then click a point way down here, hit A, and then using my arrow tool, you can see how I can line that up. Now, it may not be 100% perfect, but the closer we kind of shoot to get it perfect, the better off we'll be. All right, so that's pretty good there. All right, so what this gives us here is basically our vanishing point. Okay, so these things are coming in. I think this one is a bit off. It should be a bit further back. Yeah, watch the corners of these just because they're a little bit difficult to see. There we go. Okay, that was close enough there. All right, so this gives me, like I said, an idea of the perspective of it. may not be 100% accurate. So now I have this. What I'm going to do is go to my pen tool again and just control click off of it. And I'm just going to draw a line straight across. Okay, so I just held shift to draw that. And then I can drag this down and line it up right with that intersection. Then I can go to my paths, see where this work path is. I can just call this perspective. Another thing I can do too while I'm just on this, just to kind of get a little bit more line here, is using this. See how I can draw this line from the top. Oops. You didn't go on the same one. I wanted you to go on that one. Make sure I'm on perspective. Make sure I'm on the pen tool. There we go. And again, I'm just using this as a way to help line up my perspective. There we go. And there also could be just some distortion from the camera itself. You know, so like I said, 100% perfect, but we're getting in the ballpark. And if all four of these lines are converging at roughly the same spot, then it'll help us out to get that. Oops. I have to hit undo. There we go. I accidentally continued that line. I don't want to continue that line. I want to draw a brand new line. Right there, right there. And I hit A and drag it in. Okay. All right, so again, roughly we're at that same spot. So this will just help kind of get things somewhat lined up. So I went to a new layer, made a new layer. I'm going to go to my brush and just shrink it down. I'll pick a color here that it's easy to see. Maybe not yellow in this room, maybe this dark blue color. I don't like to go to black just because we have color. Let's use it. So I'm going to go to perspective. I'm going to go to make work path. Oops. Make sure I click all the paths. There we go. Come on. Make sure I select all of them. Then switch to my brush and then click it. There we go. Alright. So there. So now we have, like I said, just a rough idea of where this is all going to hit. Let me go back a smidge, a couple steps. I don't want these overlapping too much. Realistically, they should just kind of come into, like, this is about here is where all these are coming. So you can see this one's like really far off, so this would actually be probably another one back here. Oops, let's actually just that one over. And this is where we also have, like 2-point perspective inside of our scene. Yeah, it's really hard to see where that edge is too on that one. All right, so I just brought these all right to that, just so that when I do go to here, oops, where I do select everything like so, I do switch to my brush and I do click on that, I don't have extra lines kind of sticking, past that line. All right, so now when I drop my bookcases on here, you'll see that I have these lines that I could use to help me just kind of line up. This bookcase should be, let me scoot this down to the bottom here. Not all the way to the bottom, just where the room is. And I'll lock it. Go back to my bookcase. All right, so now I can kind of scoot it up and help line up the points with the other one. My path selected, there we go. There you go. Same thing there, right? And if I had a question too, because I have roughly this spot, I could draw out that perspective line. just by going to my pen tool and saying, here's where this starts, here's where this one is going to end. Okay, and you can see where that line is, and then I can see, okay, I definitely need to adjust my perspective of this. So I have to make sure that I am in the path tool, but not selected on the path. I'm just going to go down to my layer 1. I'm going to unlock it. I'm going to back to my path. And I can just stroke that path. Then I can lock it again. Back to this. Make sure I deselect my path. There we go. Okay. So now I can click that, and then I can adjust the perspective of this bookcase based on that path. Okay. And then I can know too, like, okay, this bookcase should be obviously that high too. Click on that one, Control T, make it a bit bigger, shuffle it up. And I have to be careful too that I don't like squish it too much, because that'll obviously will lose some of the realism of this. Okay, now it's too big, way too big. So let's go to our marquee tool, marquee this. Click on that, fill with black. There we go. So I have a couple bookcases there. Okay. So again, this is just to help lay out where our items are going to be in the room. Let's see, what else do we have? We got this. So this is like a circuit board. Use my pen tool and just kind of outline this shape. You'll see that I'm missing like part of that here, so I need to either not use it, or to make it, or to cover it up with something, or do, you know, something so it doesn't look like that, so I'm not cutting it out. Okay, and your assignment is, it's a Photoshop assignment, and this is a collaboration. Collaboration assignment of all the stuff that we've already done before. So you'll see that we're not necessarily learning anything, you know, groundbreakingly brand new. We're just kind of using those same things that we've already used before. Okay, so I'm kind of shrinking this down. I think I want to cover up maybe these back windows with this. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate it, hide the one, and I hit Control T. I could stretch this out, make it squarer. Now I can use the window here, the frame, as a way to help line that up. There we go. Alright, so it's going to go in front of this window, and then I'll copy it, and I'll go in front of that window. Okay, so these are like the server storage areas back here. Eventually these windows I think I want to cover up, because I want this to look more of like a dark area. Like this guy doesn't really have a lot of light and whatever else. Alright, so here's some more stuff that I want to add to the scene. And these are more, I said circuit board, I don't know what that thing is, but you know, just kind of make up names, wires. And for this, I just want the wires, so I don't think this is going to let me do a good job of this. We'll see. Alright, let's see what we get. I'm going to Control-Shift-I. I'm going to layer mask it. Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, that could work. I'm going to duplicate it, hide one, Control-T the other one, and then where we have these circuit boards back here, that's where these are going to go into that area also. Okay, I am distorting these on purpose just because I want them to fit within that area. I'm not doing that. That wouldn't make sense. Some small stuff far away is acceptable. And I think what I want to do too on this is I'm going to grab this area and just fill that with black. Oops. There we go. Okay, so I have wires here. And then what I can do is just duplicate this and then just shrink this down myself. Right, so I'm creating basically my own perspective of this scene. There we go. Okay, so I have my own perspective back here as opposed to theirs. Theirs was a bit much. You know, I really shrunk it in. Okay, so that's that. I'm gonna have more stuff back there too. Let me just copy this over to the other side. Obviously, it needs to be cut out more. Okay, but again, we're looking at placement. We're looking at what is going to look good in the scene. What stuff do we need? Let's see, where is my desk at? There it is. Okay, drop this in. All right, so there's my desk. Hopefully that, you know, line up pretty good. It's got some other stuff inside here too, which is kind of nice. This whole area seems like something we might be able to use. So we'll have to see about that. Now this one's a bit more involved in cutting out. So I'm just going to do this basically. I'm just going to go here and then put a layer mask on that. Okay. And then I can obviously cut it out later and reposition it and whatever. So this is going to be your first part of this, is just kind of going through and positioning your stuff and sizing it up and trying to see what looks good where. Obviously you can't change perspective on stuff too much, so you really got to find images that are going to work. So like kind of like this I can sort of kind of do. I may need to tweak it or modify it a bit more. Maybe something like that. Okay. I can just use a brush too. Because we're using a layer mask and we're not actually erasing, which you should never really erase, I can just kind of mock things up really quick just by using that layer mask. And again, you're not comfortable with it, who cares? Get comfortable with it, because it's super important. Okay, you'll even see I cut off part of the table there. It doesn't matter, like I said, because it's just for placement at this point. Okay, it's just to get an idea of what's working. All right, so there's my table. Maybe I'll make this a bit bigger. Nope, I gotta shrink it down a bit. So maybe something like that. You know, again, we'll probably have to play with it a bit more to get it there. But the part of this that is important is the slap compiness of it. Okay, the ability to just go in there and start to tweak it. So the process is going to be continued over and over and over again for lots of different items in your scene. So whatever you want to grab and put in your scene, there you go. You will bring it in. You will add some sort of quick mask to it. Maybe you'll use your color range. Right? Maybe you'll use a cutout. Maybe you'll just, for the time being, just drop a mask on it and then just go here. I'm painting with black just to, again, cut her out. Again, it's not important that it's perfect at this point because you'll go back and recut all your masks where needed. Okay, and most likely on this, I definitely need to cut a mask because it looks horrible. Okay, and then you can drop it where you think it should go. Oops, here, I scaled it wrong, so I'm going to undo it and shrink it down again. Okay, now we're also looking for perspective or for sizing. So as I start adding stuff into my scene, I really want to keep an eye on that. Like, here's my newspapers, there's my desk. The size of these two is way off. So the newspapers definitely got to shrink down. The desk maybe come up, maybe I need to find a different image, whatever. But this is the point of this one, is to find that. Now this girl doesn't have any bottom legs, right? So I want to use her in the scene. So maybe I will put her like, you know, back here or something. Oops. in my scene, like that. And this is where you can kind of deviate a little bit from the thumbnail. Is once you start getting things together, you realize like, oh, I need more stuff here or there or wherever. So then you can start planning and dropping these things in. Here is an elevator shaft, even though this is not anything relevant to what is actually in the scene. I'm also using this kind of stuff because I want this to the ceiling. Oops. The ceiling was kind of boring, so I want to spice it up. So I add this elevator shaft stuff, and it'll make it look a bit more exciting. That's the point of this. We're taking just whatever objects and just making it into our object. So something like this, like that, could look very cool right there. And then pen tool, let's cut out this. And over to our pen tool. And control click it, layers, I'm on this, that. Well, that's fine. I'll show you. I can do that. And then I just have to go back to this and hit Control I, it'll invert it. Okay, and then I can just use my thing here and erase that. Okay. So that's cool there. I'll put this, let's say here. There, that was cool. Oops, duplicate it first. I always want to duplicate it so I don't ruin the original, because you never know when the client's going to want something different. There we go. Hide that one. I can duplicate it and shove it over to this side, and then I can mirror it. So I can say edit, transform, flip horizontal. Just kind of adjust my perspective here. And again, this is all going to be done again, in a more refined state. But now it's just kind of playing with it, especially your first time doing something like this. Don't take the first part of this too serious, like as far as getting it locked in and making it look like it's right there. That's why we're doing stage 1, stage 2, and then the final, so that we can have time to tweak all this stuff. Okay. So now if we look at what I have here, here's how many images I've used. Obviously I got to fix this. I'd have to put something in front of it. So I have one image. Let's zoom out. One image, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My background's 7. I have this is 8. This is 9. Chalkboard is 10. So I have 10 images in here that I've used. Now this is enough images as far as the assignment goes, but it still looks kind of empty. I still have a whole bunch of stuff here that I could try to add to this. Where's my computer? There's my computer. So I could drop that computer in there. I could drop, some of this stuff in here. I could add another waste can. I could add my pizza. Let's go here. All right, drop my pizza on the table. Obviously the perspective doesn't match. I'm going to undo this anyway, so I'm just setting it here for now. But there we go. We have a little bit better perspective on that pizza. Okay, so I have now 11 images. But you want to add enough stuff to your scene to make it look like an actual scene, to make it look like it's something that is doable as far as a realistic picture. Okay, obviously this isn't going to be really doable. I need to cut some stuff out or whatever. Make sure all your stuff is labeled. Computers. Shaft. Okay, so I'm labeling all my stuff. Okay, so now I have, all the stuff labeled. Okay, so once you have it to this point, then you're going to grab all the stuff that's part of this, and you're going to group it. There we go, group 1. We're going to call this slap comp. All right, so this is our slap comp. So that's what you're turning in your slap comp inside here. I'm going to label this stage 1, stage 1 photo collage. Okay, so this is only the first part of it. This shouldn't take you, too long to do this kind of stuff. Then you're going to duplicate your slap comp, hide the original, and this is going to be stage 1. So now you're going to go through stage 1, and now you're going to start to clean stuff up. You're going to start to draw better masks on things. You're going to say, I like the wastebasket, but I need to do a better mask on it. I need to do a better job cutting it out. I like this, but I need to cut out that better. Okay. My paper is too big, so I'm going to go down to my paper. Oh, that's my guides. Thought I labeled that. Papers, there it is. And I'll shrink that. Maybe I'll put another, paper dish over here. Right, and I don't want it to look like the same thing. I'm just starting to populate the area with details. That's what we're doing. Stuff here. There we go. Just a bit more perspective on that, just to help it, blend in a little bit better. Some stuff there. Edit. Transform. Flip horizontal. There we go. Okay, so now we have just papers and piles. Again, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but that's where we're at. My chalkboards, I want to go through and find some images. So I want to grab some new images of chalkboard, at least just the writing part, and drop these on here. I also want to go through and maybe clean up some of these. Oops. Can't really do it on this layer because it's a smart layer, so I'm going to make a new layer above it. There it is. And maybe I need to clean up some of this. Oh, my brush is huge, that's why. There it is. So I'm going to make sure I'm on my clone stamp. I'm going to say current and below. And then I'm just going to clean up some of this mess of stuff that's on here. Oops, come on. Okay. Now, part of the thing, this is Photoshop, right? And this is a Photoshop assignment, is you have to keep track of all the stuff you've done. When I look at your end product, I look at your end result, I may not know everything you've done. Like, you may not have, you may have used the clone stamp all over the place and cleaned up a whole bunch of stuff, but it may not be anywhere in your, anywhere that's apparent, anywhere that's visible, okay? So what you need to do is keep a list of all the stuff that you've done. So far in this, we've used the pen tool to cut out some of our objects. I've used the quick selection. I've used the magic wand. I've used the color range to select stuff. I've used the clone stamp. I've used layer masks. Obviously, you want to use those. I've used my transform tools and my warp tools and distort tools. There we go. See, if you don't have, even though this looks kind of like weird here, because it's a chalkboard, we can kind of get away with that. And then obviously label this stuff. Oops. Forgot to put cleanup. There we go. Okay. So you're gonna go through this stage 1 part after you've laid out all your stuff, and then you're gonna start just populating all the items and cleaning them up a bit more, okay? So that they, again, look a little bit more in tune. You can see there's a piece of graffiti back here too. I may want to get rid of that. I don't like the graffiti on here. I don't want to destroy my original one, so I make a new layer above it. I make my brush big. I go with my clone stamp. There we go. And then I get rid of it. Maybe I want a piece of graffiti, but I don't want that one. Especially because it looks like it has someone's signature on there. Okay, some pipes here to get rid of that. There we go. Okay, so now the graffiti is gone. I may not want these vents here or this cable here for that reason, right? So I may want to just eliminate that. Okay, I don't want cloned. Go. And just be careful you don't, make it obvious that you've cloned something out by this orange pattern is pretty obvious. So if I go over here and I clone this, it's pretty obvious that this pattern is right there. And if I were to clone this again, you can see now it looks repetitive. So you don't want to do stuff like that. Always try to mix it up. There we go. Oops. Smaller brush. Okay, so you'll keep track of all this stuff too. In your end project, your final one, you'll have a list of here's all the tools that I used for this project. And it should be most of the tools that we've already used inside of Photoshop. Okay, you'll also notice I haven't erased anything or destroyed any of my original imagery. That's going to be another important thing. Layer masks are on everything. Layer masks should be on everything. You should not be erasing your stuff, because we always want to be able to get back to that original object. If I need to disable this mask and bring it back, I can. If I need to turn my papers back on and do something different with them, I can. That's what you want. Okay, so when you're done, you'll save it, and that will be inside of your stage 1, and then you'll put your stage 1 into the correct folder. Cool? Cool. And then you'll get it to me by Friday, because that way I can look at it. If you don't get it to me by Friday, then obviously it's going to take me some time to look at it so you can work on stage 2, because I'm going to look at your stage 1, make sure you're on the right path, and then you can work on stage 2, which is again going through and refining it further, adding more details, taking whatever notes I give you and fixing it, and then the final is going to be the exact same thing. Okay, so make sure you get it to me by Friday if you can. Otherwise, I'll get it and then I'll try to get it back to you so you know what things to fix and what things to focus on and work on and whatever else. All right, and then we'll just continue from there.